Sally Metcalfe, Joe Duttine, made a big decision in tonight's Coronation Street, after telling Sally Metcalfe, Sally Dynevor, the truth about Trisha Pinkerton, Anita Booth. Earlier this week, Tim picked Trisha up in his cab, a #ND. It became clear pretty quickly that they had a history. They spent the rest of the afternoon catching up, which didn't go down well with Sally, who had been left to eat her anniversary dinner alone. Tim's explanation of where he'd been only made things worse, #th Sally demanding that he sleep on the sofa. The following day Trisha was back at the cab office with one of Tim's favorite pastries. Hen Brian Packham, Peter Gunn, arrived. Tim introduced the two of them and they seemed to hit it off. The atmosphere changed when Sally arrived, and Trisha bragged about being a friend of the owner, unaware that Sally was his wife. Things got awkward as Sally properly introduced herself, before Trisha headed off. Elita, Brian and Tim continued to discuss Trisha, and Tim explained that he used to deliver papers to her dad, and that she worked in the local corner shop, which was how they'd met. Brian was shocked when Tim revealed that he'd lost his virginity to her, but that he'd only been 14 years old. With Trisha having been in her 20s at the time, Brian pointed out that she had groomed him, but Tim used to see it that way. In tonight's episode, Trisha bumped into Brian in the cafe while she was looking for Tim. Unable to hold his tongue, Brian confronted Trisha about grooming Tim, leaving her horrified. It was then that Tim arrived, and when Trisha told him about Brian's accusations, he jumped to her defense. When Brian realized that he wasn't going to be able to get through to Tim, he urged him to talk to Sally. Though Tim was against the idea, he wasn't left with a lot of choice when she came barging into the cab office having heard about his argument with Brian. When Tim explained what the argument had been about, Sally was gobsmacked. As Brian predicted, she could also see that what happened between Tim and Trisha had been sexual abuse, and she counteracted Tim's argument that his friends had patted him on the back by pointing out that other teenagers weren't best placed to judge whether it was right or wrong. It was clear Tim didn't want to talk about it any further, and still saw what happened as an enjoyable, consensual experience. However, Sally wasn't prepared to drop the topic, and when Tim later returned home he found her looking at Trisha's social media. She was quick to point out a comment on one of her photos that suggested she should be in prison, which left Sally convinced that she had followed a pattern of behavior. Tim assumed she was jumping to conclusions, before pointing out that the age difference between him and Trisha was the same as the age difference between him and Sally. Frustrated, Sally pointed out that he was an adult now, but hadn't been when he was with Trisha and therefore had been unable to consent. Despite still not seeing eye to eye with Sally, Tim decided that it was best if he didn't see Trisha again. Meeting with her in the Rovers, Tim told Trisha his decision, which left her questioning if he believed that she had owned him. He insisted that he didn't, but pointed out that that was even more reason for him not to see her, as Sally could get the wrong impression. With Trisha now seemingly out of his life for good, will Tim be able to see the situation for what it was and come to terms with the fact that he was abused,